Well, desperate farmers are being preyed upon by shameful banks, a Senate committee has been told. Now, this committee is investigating how the Australian Securities and Investment Commission failed to investigate dozens of complaints of banking misconduct against our farming community. One of the senators involved is Queensland Nationals Senator Matt Canavan, who joins me now. Matt, thank you for your time. The suggestion here, there's a lawyer faced this committee who's representing 60-odd farmers who were saying they were preyed upon by the banks, and the banks basically lent the money on the basis of the value of their land, not the potential earnings of their business. So they've overcapitalised to buggery. It's all gone bad. Then, of course, they've been foreclosed on and the bank's taken their farm away from them. Have we not learnt anything from the Banking Royal Commission?
Well, look, obviously these are allegations being put to the committee, and so those will something to be assessed, and I'm not making any particular judgment on those just yet, but farmers aren't necessarily here getting special treatment. This committee has heard multiple instances of ASIC not following up on complaints. ASIC itself has been extremely uncooperative, the committee. The committee has had to go to the Senate multiple times to demand documents from ASIC, and it really is not good enough when, of course, we're probably always going to live in a world where banks from time to time do the wrong thing and don't serve their customers properly. But you'd expect and want that the cop on the beat of ASIC would itself be trusted and not necessarily engage in misconduct in multiple instances. But as I say, we've heard lots of complaints about that, and they haven't been cooperative with the committee. I think so it's even greater concern because when something goes wrong like this for a farmer, they're often in a situation where they lose their home, not just their business. Farmers have that connection with their business in the sense that they usually often live there. And so when a bank gets this wrong, it's not just a failed business venture. It can affect the whole family. It can affect children. And there's got to be better conduct here from our banks. You're absolutely right that I don't think the Royal Commission is something that we can set and forget and think that banks will be on their best behaviour going forward. The banks are all very good at telling us how morally superior they are about issues like the voice and on climate change and all these other left-wing issues. When if they really wanted to act in a morally impeccable way, the best thing they could do would just do a better job for their customers.
And of course, it's a question of our food security as well. I mean, we're talking about the people who are meant to be feeding the nation. And if we're setting them up for failure through our banks, then we're setting ourselves up for failure. And speaking of food security, beef and lamb prices are coming down now. We've already heard of sheep farmers culling their flocks to save costs due to a price downturn. I think I heard stories last week of lamb selling for $1 a head. Now, we're certainly not paying $1 for a whole lamb's worth of meat in the supermarket, but Meat and Livestock Association is now reporting that the cost of cattle has dropped by up to 72%. And then you've got this El Nino on the horizon, which the suggestion is farmers will be forced to take more drastic measures, and there are claims that water buybacks in the Murray-Darling Basin plan will lead to higher milk prices. I mean, if you are a farmer at the moment, how can you win?
Well, look, it's always tough farming, of course, and some elements of what's happening here are God-made, if you like. Yes, there's an impending possibly drought with the El Nino being declared, and that has led to farmers offloading cattle and therefore causing a price decrease to some extent. But there are some man-made elements of the frustrations that are facing our farmers right now. Number one, the government has announced that they're going to ban live sheep exports. There's no science behind this. The animal welfare outcomes have improved considerably for farmers, but the government has taken this position because it's selling out to the Greens, and they have decided to ban live sheep exports that principally affect Western Australia. But as we saw with the live cattle ban under Gillard's time, that affects all markets. And sheep prices, as you said, $1 a head in Wagga Wagga the other week, a long way from live sheep markets, but that extra amount of livestock on the market is causing prices to crash for all farmers. And then this week I'm out in the Murray-Darling, and the government has announced out of nowhere that they're going to buy more water back from our farmers. And these are not really buybacks, these are buyouts of farmers. They destroy regional communities, cost jobs in these towns, and for all of your viewers in the city, they'll mean higher prices. Because if you allow farmers to use less water, they'll grow less food, and they'll push the price of those food items up, and they're already skyrocketing in our shops. I don't think people can afford more.
Exactly. Now, the AEC, they've been in a bit of hot water this week, but they're using planes and helicopters and boats and all sorts to get to people in remote Aboriginal communities to encourage them to vote in the referendum, and they're taking interpreters and all sorts of stuff with them because Indigenous enrolment's the highest it's ever been at about 94%. But, you know, I understand that this will happen in any election or any referendum, that's fine. But I just can't help thinking the $400 million we're spending on the referendum, the money we're spending on these boats and helicopters and planes, imagine if we just actually spent that on practical help instead of trying to get people to vote in a referendum.
Well, I think you're exactly right, Caleb. This has been a massive distraction for our country, caused an enormous amount of division, and is not going to help Aboriginal people one way or another, whatever the result. It has been a huge, huge waste of your viewers' money, your taxpayer money has been wasted here on this. I mean, I'm very much an advocate. If we're going to have constitutional referenda, they should be placed alongside a general election, unless there's a really good reason not to. The reason Anthony Albanese is doing this now is he didn't want a voice debate to distract from any re-election campaign he has to pursue in the next couple of years. So he's effectively spending $400 million of your money, which, as you say, could be used to actually help Aboriginal people. He's doing that to protect himself and make sure he doesn't have an election period that's muddled with another issue. And I think that's grossly incompetent, a gross mismanagement of taxpayer money. And if we're going to have, the Prime Minister next wants a referendum on the Republic as well, I think that would be another waste of $400 million. But for God's sake, if you're going to do it, just do it at the same time an election, and then at least we're not spending more money than we need to when we have to have an election anyway.
Well, they did say that whether or not we have a referendum on becoming a republic would have something to do with whether this one gets up, so it may well be off the cards. Matt Canavan.
More hands.
It's all right, Matt Canavan. Thank you for joining me tonight.